So, how does a life that's, well, destined for disaster turn into this incredible story of success? That's exactly what we're going to dive into today. It's a journey about a simple lifeline and how that lifeline became a lasting legacy.
Okay, so the story kicks off with this pretty shocking admission. I mean, think about that for a second. Jail or worse. That paints a picture of some serious hardship, right? Super low expectations. You just have to ask, what on earth could make someone say that about their own childhood?
But here's the thing, that's not what happened. That dark path, it wasn't the one he went down. And that's where it gets really interesting. So why? What was the one thing that completely changed the direction of a life that, by all accounts, was headed for failure?
All right, to really get the answer here, we've got to look at the two sides of the coin. We need to see the before and the after, the life he was living back then versus the life he has today. So this is him today. I mean, look at this. By any standard, he's a huge success. You've got a successful business, investment properties, he's even a Broadway investor. And he's not just showing this list off to impress us, he's setting the stage. Because when you think about where he started, getting from that dark prediction to this, well, it's pretty unbelievable.
And this is why that journey is so unbelievable. At just 14 years old, his entire world just unraveled. His father dies. 7 days later, his mother has a severe breakdown. He's a kid planning his own dad's funeral. By 16, he's legally on his own. I mean, can you even imagine? That is a staggering amount of trauma and responsibility for any teenager to handle.
So here he is, facing homelessness and a future that's completely up in the air. He had no choice but to become a problem solver, and fast. And what he found wasn't just some handout. No, it was a lifeline. It was a real strategy that actually worked.
Okay, what I find so fascinating here is how he talks about his survival. This wasn't him just passively accepting help. No, this was a strategy. Becoming an emancipated minor, that was a tactical move. It was the key to unlocking the government programs that could give him the absolute basics, a roof over his head and food to eat. And maybe the most brilliant part of his plan? Using college as a way to stay off the streets.
But wait a second, how in the world does a teenager working odd jobs pay for college? Well, the simple answer is he couldn't. It was impossible. He explains that these specific programs you see here, Pell Grants, SEOG, and New York's TAP, they're the reason he could go to college for free. They weren't giving him a life of luxury. They were just giving him a chance. And this is where he really makes his central point, and it's a powerful one. He completely reframes the whole conversation. People talk about handouts, right? But for him, these programs weren't handouts that create dependency. No, they were the literal definition of a lifeline. They were the one and only thing that let him escape an impossible situation and just catch his breath. And he makes this next point with absolute clarity. It's so important. None of his success would have happened without that foundation.
Think about it. Without those programs, there's no apartment when he's 16, and from there, it's just a domino effect.
No apartment means no stability. No college means no dorm room. And, this is the big one, no real estate license. That course was what kicked off his entire career, his whole life. Everything he has today hinges on that initial support. Okay, so this is where the story takes a big turn. It pivots from his own personal history to a much broader and frankly more urgent look at the world we're all living in today. He paints a really stark contrast here. The very system that gave him that lifeline, he argues it's being dismantled. Those safety nets, things like rental support, food assistance, college aid, they're shrinking, they're being cut. He's basically watching the very tools that allowed him to build his own American success story being taken away from the next person who might need them.
And look, he tackles a really common argument head-on. He totally gets that, yes, some people misuse the system. He's a landlord, he's seen it himself. But his point is so important. You don't get rid of the entire lifeline, a tool that saves lives, just because a small handful of people abuse it. It's that classic saying, right? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
So, if the systems we rely on are getting weaker, what do we do? Where does that leave us? For him, the answer isn't to just give up in despair. The answer is a choice. It's about compassion. And he makes this appeal directly to a specific group of people, real estate professionals. He says, you see these cracks in the system before anyone else does.
You're on the front lines. You see the families struggling, the parents who have to ration meals. You see people making desperate choices, not because they're irresponsible, but just because they don't have enough. You see it all up close.
So what does he do? He doesn't just talk about it, he takes action. His company partnered with Feeding America. And the reason why is just incredible leverage. Check this out. $1 provides 10 meals. He calls it compassion with efficiency. And it's such a tangible, powerful way to make a huge, huge impact.
And this brings us to the final part of his story. This is where he turns the spotlight away from himself and his own actions and shines it directly on us.
His message is pretty simple. Look, we might not be able to control national policy, but we can 100% control our own compassion. When the big systems fail, individual people can step up. And he gives this list of small, totally doable human-scale actions. This isn't about solving all the world's problems. It's about changing someone's day. It's about giving someone a little bit of hope. It's about making a conscious choice to see people, not problems.
And so that really brings us to the final and most important takeaway here. We've just walked through this incredible story, from the absolute brink of disaster to a legacy of success. And it was all made possible because of a lifeline, because of a few helping hands. So now the question gets passed to us. I want you to really think about this. In your own life, in your own community, how will you be a lifeline?